got ASICs with a cache. I'll just try the cache. So a write comes in, and it's either going to be a local write, which means it's going to come off this node, or it's going to be a remote write, which means he's the owner of that logical disk and those physical disks that data is going to land on. That's a local write, or it's going to be a remote write. And in this example, 75% of the time, it's not a local write. It's owned by another node. So the write comes into the HBA, and I said this before, the CPUs will say, where is that write going? And it will move that write off of the HBA, or it actually tells the ASIC to move that data off of the HBA to the ASIC that has the connection to the node that it's going to. So we'll look at a local write is really easy. Comes in, oh, it's going out my local, it'll stick it on one of the ASIC's data cache pages, or how many pages it needs. Then schedule it up, and it'll move it to the HBA to be scheduled to get flushed to the back end. Pretty simple. Oh, actually, I'm skipping a step. Sorry, it's a write. Write comes in, it's going to be mirrored to its buddy node that's connected to the same amount of disks. So these guys all connect to a bunch of disks on the back end. They share connections to disks. So the write will come in, it'll be put this cache page mirrored to this cache page and act to host. That's all, worst case is millisecond, 2 milliseconds, somewhere around. On a remote write, so it's going to go to one of the nodes that's not local. The write's going to come in, he's going to mirror that data to another node. His buddy node is going to get a small log that, hey, I've got the back. He has the backup data if this node crashes. ACK. So it's there's very little data. Just that this page is owned by this guy. Very little data, and we ACK it again. It's about the same performance, a local write versus a remote write, and it's scheduled to be ACKed out. Now this is really cool, and this is something that is totally a three-part thing. If you lose the controller node on every other modular system, you should, some of them default not to, you should go into write-through mode because your data is unprotected at that point. You should never trust cache writes. You should always go to back end, right? But if you do that, performance tanks because now you're from the speed of memory to speed of disk. In three-part, what we can do when we have a node failure is we'll remap those cache pages and how things are mirrored. So now a write will come in, it'll be mirrored to this node and act. So we never go into write-through mode for a 4-node configuration. So whenever I talk to people, they want to look at a smaller three-part, like, oh, the F200, which is kind of our smallest little system, I beat on them with a stick until they agree to go to an F400. Maybe they start with 2 nodes. But they could grow to this cache persistent problem. Because I've never met anybody that's happy when they have a controller node failure and their writes go to the speed of disk.
So does a 3-part have non-volatile RAM, or is it battery backed up?
So when we could do the tour, I don't know if it's an F or whatever, but there's a battery